Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This is Nick Wright. Somehow, some way, we made it to Friday. We are so glad you're here with us for the next couple of hours. Fun show today. James Harden is making championship promises. Danny Ainge is defending Kyrie Irving like only Danny Ainge can. And in Philly, they're all in on Carson Wentz again. That's where we start, in the city of brotherly love. The Eagles showed Carson Wentz some of that love this offseason with a 4-year extension with $107 million guaranteed. His head coach, Doug Peterson, said he sees this season as a great opportunity for Wentz, and he was highly complimentary of his quarterback. Wentz, coming off back-to-back seasons, cut short by injury. A lot of optimism in Philadelphia surrounding this season. CC, how hard will it be for Wentz to return to his 2017 Pro Bowl form?
Well, the Eagles, what they've done is, and through trading Nick Foles to Jacksonville, allowing him to be out of their program, because you can't have Nick Foles with his resume winning the championship with the fan base they have there in Philadelphia continuing to look over Carson. Now, the concerns about Carson's health, Nick, I think you've done a good job through the months, through the years, talking about he's a guy that's injury prone. And if you're really giving an honest look on both sides of it, you have to talk about those injuries. And they just didn't start last year. They didn't start 2 years ago. They go back a number of years at every level that he's been hurt. So you have to talk about that. But they've done the right things as far as supporting him. Pro Football Focus has their offensive line ranked the best offensive line heading into the 2019 season. Even though they have question marks as far as their left tackle, Jason Peters, how much football does he have left in him? Yep. They have an insurance policy, drafted a guy in the first round to potentially add to, which is already a great unit.
Moved up to go grab that guy. Moved up in front of the Houston Texans, if I remember correctly, because they were worried they were going to take him. So they targeted that guy, moved up in the first round to get him, even though he's not going to start for them. They don't want him to start for them.
And it just gives them a great deal of depth. But if Jason Peters, can he stay healthy throughout the season, or will this young guy take over, even though Peters has had a tremendous career? Their ability to get some balance, running the football, I believe Jordan Howard coming over from the Chicago Bears, a lot of people don't hear about him. I believe he's underrated as a player. They need a banger. They drafted a kid in second round, Miles Sanders from Penn State. He should be able to help them. But ultimately, Zach Ertz has shown he can be a #1 receiver, tight end. He's had a tremendous summer following his wife around with the World Cup, winning the championship. But I believe the biggest player be Deshaun Jackson. No one in the NFL has caught more 60 yards, touchdowns than him in NFL history. Now, we're going into our 100th season now. We've had some guys that can burn. We've had guys had a lot of yards per catch average. But when you put that with Carson Wentz and some of the things he struggled with last year compared to what he did 2 years ago, I believe bringing back that deep threat with that good offensive line, Jordan Howard giving them some type of punch in a running game, I look for Carson to be able to duplicate what he did 2 years ago and wasn't able to finish it up, getting injured before potentially winning MVP, Nick.
So what were the biggest differences between 17 and 18? So because if you look at it, you're like, okay, in 2017, when it looked like he was going to win the MVP, he had a quarterback rating of 102. And in 2018, when he had a losing record as a starter and the team was kind of floundering to a degree, he had a quarterback rating of 102. So how is that the case? Well, in 2017, he did it with an enormous amount of touchdown passes, 33 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. In 2018, he did it by upping his completion percentage from 60% to 70%, which is an outstanding completion percentage, but far fewer touchdowns, only 21 touchdowns. Also, when he was great in 2017 in particular, his best quarter was the first quarter. 10 touchdowns, 2 picks, a 118 rating. Why does that matter? With the pass rush they had, they jumped out to early leads. They could then attack the opposing team. You could rely on that offensive line and running game. In 2018, his worst quarter was the first quarter. 78 rating, only 3 total touchdowns in that first quarter. So you're not playing from ahead. You're playing from behind. You're not relying on your strength. So even if from 10,000 feet the numbers look similar, it was a less effective season for him. And some bad luck in that. So he starts 11 games. 3 of those losses, one time, They lose a game in overtime that they had a lead in overtime. That was the Mike Vrabel going for it instead of settling for the tie. They're up 17-0 going into the fourth quarter against Carolina. Defense allows 21 straight. Cowboys, they play them in overtime. And what I think was Carson's last start, they never touched the ball. Dallas goes down the field, scores a touchdown. So that 5-6, without Carson doing really anything differently, with better defense, could have been 8-3, and we're looking at the season differently. We're looking at what he did. So slower starts, bad luck, not as, like, that's how you go from, wow, this guy should be the MVP, to is this guy the best quarterback on his own team when his talent level has not changed.
So Doug Peterson, when asked about this offense, said, far and away, this is the most skilled and talented offense I've had as a head coach coming into a season. Do you agree with that, CC, looking at what they've had and these the other good seasons that Doug Peterson had?
Well, I think specifically because when I talk about a wide receiving core, I typically talk about a basketball team. Like you need 5 different variances of skill level. So I know he respects the running back. That's why they really believe they got a gem in Jordan Howard. They were high on the kid from Penn State, Miles Sanders, drafting him. But their wide receiving core, Zach Ertz, if he was the center, being the tight end, he has shown he can get open, being double covered. He can run a variety of routes. Now you add the speed in Deshaun Jackson, so now it starts to fill out. He's the point guard. He's going to run it. They're going to play a fast tempo. And then you have other guys been on the field. Alshon, he'll bounce back from that drop that he had in the playoffs. We don't know where the Eagles' season would have ended if he catches that ball. So I just believe the other players that they have, they really fill out that roster. Yeah, Doug, he should be confident. Also, he's got 2 years' experience. I guarantee you he feels a lot better as far as what Carson can do, what kind of schemes can I put him in, what type of things does he like, and now that I'm adding some speed to it, I believe they'll have one of the most explosive offenses, Jenna, in the NFL.
And with respect to Jay Ajayi, I think Jordan Howard is the best pure runner they've had since Wentz has been there.
Yes.
I think Jordan
There
Howard,
was a reason why Jay was available from Miami.
Absolutely. And I don't totally understand the reason Jordan Howard was available from Chicago. I think that was a mistake by them. I understand they like the smaller, faster running back they have, but I thought Jordan Howard was excellent for them. I think he will be even better behind this offensive line. And Deshaun Jackson, I thought he'd be a great fit in Tampa with Jameis. They never seemed to totally get on the same page. He played his best when Fitzy was in there, when Fitzmagic was in there. Deshaun Jackson seems like a guy that's going to be able to run till he's 50. Like he's been in the league, feels like forever, still one of the fastest guys. Not at North Dakota State, not in his first 3 years in the league, has Carson Wentz had a deep threat weapon like Deshaun Jackson. So those two additions, even if Carson doesn't totally recapture the 2017 effect that he had, those two weapons should help this team enormously.
Doug Peterson, go ahead.
D-Jack last year, only wide receiver to average 18 yards. Even didn't have the type of numbers he won there in Tampa. Only receiver 18 yards a catch last season.
DJ, my opinion, star of Hard Knocks that season. Just saying. Well, just saying. Just mention it one more time. Coming up, James Harden is making a championship promise. We'll talk some basketball on the other side of FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We'll be right back. In just one day, one of the greatest fighters of our generation puts his legacy on the line as Manny Pacquiao battles undefeated world champ Keith Thurman in the can't miss fight of the summer. Tomorrow, 9 Eastern, live on pay-per-view or order on the Fox Sports app. And if you're wondering what a Pacquiao or Thurman punch looks like, Nick is about to show you.
No, I'm not about to show you. I'm about to tell you about this fight, though. Keith Thurman, undefeated, biggest fight of his life, slight underdog. I think he's going to win, though.
Did he sign that? He signed that glove for you.
Both of them
Manny
did.
Pacquiao, yeah?
Keith Thurman and Manny Pacquiao. And in fact, you know what? How about this? Cris gave away a jugs machine the other day. Oh, okay, you're going to hit me? I can take it, man. I can take me a punch.
Wow.
I don't see, I told you. Man, you must be.
Can I
you must
try
have
on
lost
this
a
side?
step. Whatever you want, man. I can take a punch, man. You don't grow up where I grew up, see, and not be able to take a punch. I almost got it through. Hey, you gave away a jugs machine a few weeks ago.
Yes.
Die-hard boxing fan that's watching right now, not watching on the internet later. First person tweet to me, I'm going to send you one of these. A Thurman Pacquiao signed glove.
Wow,
Okay.
very nice.
Absolutely.
All right, the next thing we
Can't
get,
top
I'm gonna
that,
have to
Jenna.
send. Nope. The next thing anyone sends me, I will give away. But you have your corner on the boxing gloves, and you had the
Excellent
jug
addition.
machine, so
No
I'll
problem.
get something. But that's very nice, Nick. That's really cool.
Absolutely.
Love that. All right, we'll talk some James Harden in a second. But first, Brewers, Diamondbacks, and Lorenzo Cain elevates center field wall.
Okay, Cain.
Very nice catch right here.
Now, this is normal for him.
One of my favorite players in baseball.
I didn't know that.
Won World Series with the Kansas City Royals.
Yes.
I
That's
once
why.
partied with him after they advanced the ALCS. Great guy, love him.
You've partied with a lot of famous people, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Portland Timbers
Jenna.
versus Orlando FC. Did you say Aunt Jenna? That was the best time. Check out the teamwork here, making the dream work. Sweet kiss off the post for a Timbers goal.
Oh, no. Oh, that's beautiful.
Great cross.
Header, assist, header to the header.
Yeah,
Nice.
I was trying to make sure I ain't messed that one.
Miami Pro League heats Derek Jones Jr. Catches a reverse alley-oop and throws it down.
Man, we were telling you all last season, Miami doesn't have a bunch of great players, but they got a bunch of great athletes. He's one of them.
I don't know what the point guard is cheering for. Like he did something. That was a bad pass. I used to love that when the quarterback threw it bad and then I catch
Make
it.
you
And
look.
the quarterback
And then
would
he
be
gets
apologized. I've been like, don't apologize. They didn't think that was you.
All right, on to the Rockets now. James Harden has already won an MVP. He's already made 7 All-Star teams, and he's done it all before the age of 30. There is one glaring line missing on his resume. Yesterday, Harden says that he not only knows he needs to bring a championship to Houston, but he promised he'd do it, quote, very soon. CC, what'd you make of Harden's comments?
Man, I don't like those promises. In team sports, if he was playing in the British Open, playing by himself, saying he was going to do it and everything, okay, you're out there by yourself. But I don't like the I factor, especially given everything that's coming out of Houston. Problem coaching staff, got rid of a bunch of coaches. The head coach didn't know if they was going to sign him to an extension. There was a problem. All right, the owner had to get on this private plane, go to West Virginia to be able to work out that situation.
And that's still not worked out, by the way. Still no extension. They thought they were going to get it worked out.
And we know that, let's just say, some of the Chris Paul stuff in Harden was real. Obviously, that's the reason why you move Chris Paul the way that they did. Man, this is a tough promise. I don't like guys making promises. You don't have no championship experience. Now, Nick and I were talking about this earlier. As I said, Nick, name me a guy that made a championship promise and fulfilled it. He was like, well, not many people. LeBron did it in Cleveland. I was like, yeah. You saw how the promise and what the negative publicity got them in Miami. Yep. Not 1, not 2, not 3. It's just not. You don't have to do that. It doesn't make you a champion. It doesn't make you that, you're into it more than other people. No, people say, well, I'm going to verbalize it. No, you verbalized what you were going to do. If he would have said, we as the Houston Rockets, the owner, because the owner's committed. The general manager, he is committed. Harden's committed. I just prefer that part about him promising that he's going to do it. Leave that part out because they're not far off. Haven't been far off the last couple years. And if not for the super team in Golden State, Houston could have been that team like Toronto, if they had gotten the luck Toronto got to be able to hoist the NBA trophy.
But, Nick, could you see a little bit how the last couple of days we've been talking about how Harden and Russell Westbrook will get along and how they're going to fit and all of it, and maybe it's up to Harden to say, oh, no, we got this. Don't worry. We're not only going to win, it's going to happen pretty soon, just to maybe get all the negative talk out of what will fit and sort of get the whole world onto this Houston bandwagon?
I think it's less about the last few days and more about the last few years. I think Chris and I go back and forth. Who's the best player in the league? Is it Kawhi? Is it LeBron? Was it Kevin Durant? James Harden, since Mike D'Antoni's been there, has accomplished everything one can accomplish except for what he's talking about here. Since Mike D'Antoni's been there, he's averaging, this is over 3 years, 32, 7, and 9. He's got 2 scoring titles and an assist title. He's won an MVP and finished second the other 2 years. Historically, you're going to look back at this 3-year stretch and we'll see if it continues and say, oh my God. Like, as far as offensive production, put this up against any 3-year stretch any player's ever had. Yet, not only has he not won a championship, hasn't even been to a finals. In this 3-year stretch, only been to one conference finals. Years 1 and years 3 bounced in the second round. Both of those years when you were bounced in the second round, you were eliminated in a game where your opposing team didn't have its best player. Lost to the Spurs without Kawhi, lost to the Warriors without Durant. So it is a 3-year era since D'Antoni's been there of truly unprecedented regular season success for Harden, and then not reaching where you need to reach in the postseason. And we can blame it on bad luck 2 years ago, and I think that had a lot to do with it, with the Chris Paul injury, but this is the last mountain left for him to climb. So, Chris, your point being, it's fine if that's the last mountain for him to climb. Don't verbalize it this way. I get that. But this is real for Harden. This is the only thing left on the resume. If he had won the title 2 years ago, when they were up 3-2 on Golden State, there wouldn't be much of a discussion about who the best player in basketball is. Wouldn't be Kawhi, LeBron. Harden would have the strongest claim to the throne, if you will. But because they've never even been to the finals, he's an also-ran when we talk about the best player in basketball.
Yeah, I don't think they're a Russell Westbrook away from being a champion. It's just not. It's not a good look. You talk about those unbelievable numbers, and what has it gotten them?
Right.
To me, it speaks to my point. Like, so them adding players, him saying, I need some help so that we can win a championship. Because you're right, those numbers will match up, and he's not done. And I give Harden a lot of credit. He plays with a lot more energy on the defensive end. He is taking care of his body. Some of the things is from a lifestyle standpoint. He's curbed those things to be able to, that he would have unbelievable cardio and be able to play the way that he does. Yes, I got a lot of respect for that. Just don't individualize it. You're in a team sport. Understand the responsibility that everyone has in that. But to me, it still boils down to, I don't trust their coach. You talked about in those series the last couple years, with their best player out, what move has that coach done to give you confidence that you can make a statement like that? I haven't seen it through his coaching career. I haven't seen it when I listen to him. I haven't seen it when I hear about the X's and O's. Yeah, they're a great offensive team. But defensively, when you get in the playoffs, Nick Nurse was the difference. Giannis, we ain't got no answer for him. Let's put Kawhi on him. Nick Nurse made a number of adjustments. Van Fleet, we're going to put him back into the lineup. We're going to start a different lineup going out in the third quarter. Those are the types of moves that win you a championship. And I don't have the confidence that they have the type of head coach that's going to be able to do that, to be able to back up what Harden is saying. I got no problem personally with Harden and his commitment to trying to bring a championship, but just be careful. You don't have to go about it that way.
Well, it looks like the head coach is going to be there if they can work this out.
And even if they can't, he's going to be the coach this year. Right. We just don't know moving forward.
And Russell Westbrook is going to be there moving forward. Do you think, to Chris's point, they could get this done with that head coach and with that other guard alongside James Harden?
I am not as down.
Can these two hold each other accountable and get something done?
So I'm not as down on D'Antoni as Chris is. I might not be quite as high on him as Chris Broussard is. Broussard said he's already got him in the Hall of Fame. I think you can make a case for that due to innovation. It's tougher when it comes to postseason success, part of his resume. I am not certain, and I want to make this clear because I've been the one defending the Russell Westbrook trade. I'm not certain it's going to work. I'm just certain it's a move I would have made. I'm just certain that if I have the opportunity to trade out Chris Paul and the relationship that had deteriorated and the player that had deteriorated for Russell Westbrook, the potential upside of that is enormous. The downside has to be recognized as well, and whether or not James Harden alongside Russ can be as effective as he was alongside Chris Paul.
Yeah, things just got harder, all right? I know Harden's making the promise, but things got harder. They got no answer for Anthony Davis, and Kawhi just came back to the West. So it wasn't like the West just got easier because Golden State broke up. No, they're going to have to deal with how can they win 4 series. I don't have the confidence that they have the head coach should be able to get them through. I got confidence in their players. Eric Gordon's very important. Does he take a back seat now that Russ needs the ball a little bit more? He shouldn't, because he's one of the glue guys for them. His ability to be able to stretch the defense and play at a high level and play defense. One of the questions is Clint Capella. How much better is he going to get? because he's got to be able to live up to that contract that they gave him last year. Those things, I believe, are vital for Houston to continue to build.
All right, let's take a break. Talk a little football on the other side. Are Aaron Rodgers and the Packers already Super Bowl bound? What's next on First Things First? Tomorrow at FS1, it's an MLB doubleheader. First, rookie sensation Pete Alonso powers the Mets. They take on the Giants. Then it's Anthony Rendon leading the Nationals against Ronald Acuna Jr. and the Braves. Catch the action starting 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific. It's on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. Time now for us to go viral, and on what will be my favorite viral of the day. Check this out, guys. Celtics general manager Danny Ainge playing one-on-one against his dog. Someone needs to redraft this guy. Check out the handles. At a young age 60 from Danny Ainge. That's actually pretty good. A lot of guys can't get down that far. Nick, you got on Twitter and replied to this video saying, quote, "That little French bully showing more defensive resistance than Enes Kanter will all year."
No, that ain't right, man. Listen, why are you messing with Kanter?
I can't. This was just a perfect storm. It allowed me to take a little shot at my buddy Enes Kanter. And I can say my buddy now. He and I had a nice little conversation in the DMs yesterday that'll stay private, but we've come to an understanding.
All right,
and it allowed me to tweet out a video of Jenna's childhood crush, one Daniel R. Ainge.
That's the guy I fell in love with. At that age. See, you guys make fun of me.
30
look at
years
him. He's an Adonis.
70 pounds ago.
He's an Adonis.
I mean, look at that.
Look at him. By the way, I also tweeted last night. I don't tweet a ton. I tweeted at Danny Ainge. I know it's been about 2 years, but perhaps you could see it within your free time to maybe, I don't know, tweet
Jenna,
or follow back. Nothing?
He is a married grandfather.
I'm not
of
hitting
17.
on the man. I just really
You've been hitting on him for 35 years.
Well, it depends. Semantics.
You should maybe let this one go.
Look at us. Come on.
Well, yeah.
Look how cute that is.
Jenna loves her some mediocre white dudes, man.
Stop it. That's why I love you so much, Nick.
You guys' description of love.
Time for stories to start your morning. Yesterday,
No, I did love seeing this.
Kevin Durant hopped on the gram, posted a couple of pictures of his rehab from his torn Achilles. Check him out. Shooting some hoops in the pool. All right, Chris, what's going to be the hardest part of KD's recovery?
That's what I'm talking about right there. This is exciting for me because I believe this is his biggest challenge of his career. I believe he is going to respond to it. You could see with some of the movement that they're doing. That's why I've been consistent with this. The cutting-edge medicine and the recovery aspect, it's totally different than what guys went through a number of years ago. Kevin Durant will be back. Man, from this Achilles injury, you see him up around. You see his jump shot, him still shooting. The scenery right there, of course, is second to none. I'm glad he shared this with us, man. I'm a huge fan of Kevin Durant, and I want to see the easy sniper money. What's his name?
Easy money sniper.
Yeah, that dude, too. Yeah, him, too. I'm excited about it.
I'll be very quick here. When Chris says he'll be back, Chris means he believes he can be back in February of this coming season. That played the 8 months from injury, that's a realistic, not a guarantee or anything, but that is a realistic timetable to see Kevin Durant this year, which for the Nets would shake up the Eastern Conference playoff picture enormously.
I wonder where in Brooklyn that was. That is beautiful.
I don't think he was in Brooklyn.
Yesterday, Tobias Harris said that the Sixers are for sure at the top of the Eastern Conference. However, he may be a little bit biased considering the fact that the Sixers gave him $180 million this offseason. Nick, is Philly the best team in the East?
No, but they are nipping at Milwaukee's heels, and they could be the best team in the East. Milwaukee's got a question in the backcourt, which is they paid Eric Bledsoe early. That prevented them from paying Malcolm Brogdon. They brought back George Hill. They might have let their best backcourt player go. How much can they overcome that loss since they did bring back essentially everyone else? Philly's a question of fit. They lost their best shooter in Redick. They obviously lost their closer in Jimmy Butler. They bring in Horford. They bring in Josh Richardson. But, of course, Tobias Harris is going to think this. And Tobias Harris, remember, he turned down $80 million a year ago, bet on himself, turned that 80 into 180, so he's feeling great about everything right now.
Yeah, well, they'll be dependent on him to be the potential second scorer for them. You get in the playoffs, we've seen Ben has struggled the last 2 years, but I challenge Ben Simmons. Man, release a video, man. Release some video you working on your game, man, outside of
Kevin
the
Durant
restricted
did it. He's got
area.
one leg. You're right. You know what? You're right. You're right. You made a good point.
Release some video, bruh.
That's a good point. All right, on to the NFL. The AFC West is loaded with elite quarterbacks. You got Patrick Mahomes, you got Phillip Rivers, you got Derek Carr. Well, Joe Flacco is in Denver trying to get back to that list, says he's got a lot left in the tank. CC, how good can Flacco be for the Denver Broncos?
John, who picked the quarterback?
John Elway.
Oh, okay. Anytime Elway picking the quarterback, man, I got problems. I believe Denver's defense got the potential to be nasty, but I don't see Joe Flacco playing at a high level. Change of address is not going to change his skill level. Mile high is not going to help Joe Flacco. He's known for throwing the ball deep. They don't have the receiving core to match his skill level. And Flacco is one of those quarterbacks that has not transitioned from being a pitcher to being I can throw short, I can throw sideways. He just has not transitioned in his career.
I understand the best moment of Joe Flacco's career arguably came against the Denver Broncos, I think it was at Mile High, the Jacoby Jones touchdown, or not the Jacoby Jones touchdown, but the touchdown against the Broncos. I think it was Raheem Moore, the safety, who misplayed the ball on their Super Bowl run.
Yes, the Mile High miracle.
Yeah, absolutely. But listen, that Joe Flacco does not exist anymore. I don't know if it ever existed outside of that playoff run. All the numbers say since that season, he's been the worst everyday starter in football. That's not going to change in Denver.
All right,
they should have stayed with your guy, Case.
Yeah, see? I knew that sentence would eventually be uttered. Last season, then Browns head coach Hugh Jackson was fired after starting the season with just 2 wins in their first 8 games. After Hugh was fired, the team won 5 games, and Baker Mayfield took off. Well, yesterday, Hugh was on the Herd and was asked if Baker's recent comments bother him. Here's what he had to say.
It doesn't bother me personally because, I mean, again, I've been in the National Football League for a long time, and I've seen a lot of different ways that people have handled things. He has to do what he feels he needed to do, and so that's how he's handled it. Again, everybody's going to handle things differently. That's how he chooses to make sure that he's ready to go, ready to play, or has his team ready to play. And again, the Browns wasn't playing Hugh Jackson. They were playing the Bengals. So at the end of the day, whatever that was for him and their football team on those particular days, it worked. They won the game.
Look, CC, Baker Mayfield is a different cat. He just is than the guys we've seen coming out in the last couple of years. He's brash, he's confident, he's young, he knows he has a lot to learn, but he walks in as if he's already learned a lot of it. Are there any drawbacks to a guy whose style is that when you're going into year 2?
I think when you're trying to have a long career, you can't project out there what you're going to look like when you get 30 and how things are going to sound when you were younger. So, yes, there can be negative from that. But I think that right now in life, it's really, really hard to be true to yourself. And professional sports is very, very difficult. And then, man, there are a lot of successful people out there. But most of the time, people don't make suggestions about other people's lives that are successful. Your brother, successful doctor. People don't call him up. You know something? You know what you should be doing? We got 3 or 4 new procedures. You need to be continuing your education. You know what? They accept his expertise. And Baker Mayfield is one of the rare breeds that we have. There's only 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. 32 of these guys in the world. And Baker is special even in that group. So among special guys, he's even special. But this is his personality. Those who have coached him, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem, just like the quarterback shouldn't look a certain way. He doesn't have to talk a certain way. He doesn't have to be a certain height for me. Now we're seeing with Arizona, with their chance that they're taking. No. In this day and age where you can protect the quarterback, you cannot brutally beat up the quarterback in the NFL. Now he can be any size. With the millennials now in the NFL, he can't have any type of personality. All these new young coaches we have, you think they can't relate to him? Also, one thing we don't know. We don't know what Hugh said to Baker when he was there. We don't know actually how he was coached because I know Baker thought he should have been the starter from the beginning. So when he didn't put him in there, He put Tyrod in there. Did he hold Baker back? And immediately once Baker begins to start, the guy who wouldn't start me, he happens to be on the opposition. Oh, I'm getting ready to knife him. I can understand the personality. That's how you can play a long time in this league. I know Hugh has coached a long time, a little bit as a head coach, and none of that was successful except for drafting Baker, which wasn't his call. That was the general manager's call in Dorsey. So I got a lot of respect for Baker trying to be true to who he is and carve out his own career. Because in sports, it's the only career where you're an expert, but people are always telling you what you should be doing.
And I think we do this isn't just in sports, but I'll use the sports example. I think we do a bad job assuming something that is impossible, which is we can take someone's personality, keep all the good things, and then carve away at some of the things that can be prickly. This was one of my things, whether you agree or disagree, in some of the defenses of Odell. When it's like, okay, we want the excitement, the competitive spirit, the exuberance on the field, but let's carve away some of the mayhem it causes. Baker, I talked to Mina Kimes yesterday. Mina wrote the article that so many of these quotes have come from. She spent a week with Baker Mayfield. You know what she said? Man, his leadership is seductive. Chris Carter spent 10 minutes with him, shook his hand, said he's a different type of cat.
And not strange, just unusually good.
And unusually confident, unusually charismatic. Hugh Jackson said that when he walked into the building, this is a couple of years ago, that he would make that laugh sound or whatever, and then everyone would do it. Everyone that's been around Baker has been very consistent that he has this intangible leadership quality that is unique to him. For people to assume that you can then strip away some of what you could call tribalism, which is you're either with me or against me. Okay, hey, Duke Johnson, even you're on the team, but you're not here. Bleep you. Colin Cowherd, don't like you either. Hugh, you were here. And keep that unique and almost generational leadership. I think that's naive. And so, yeah, I think he will step in some potholes, but I think it's this personality that has allowed a 5-foot or a 6-foot kid that had to walk on at multiple places to have the success that he's had. So you got to take the good with some of the potential bad with this type of person, I believe.
I think you make such a good point. I think if Odell was in a winning culture and a winning team, we wouldn't have seen some of the negative things as much or focused so much on it. But what happens if things go sour? And I happen to like the confidence that Baker has. I love the confidence Odell had. But if they start losing and things go sour, is he looked upon differently? Do you suddenly want a guy like that to maybe not be running around sticking a flag in the center of a field?
Pro sports is about performance. It's about getting it done. That's why they keep a scoreboard, because they want to know at the end who won and who lost. In the NFL, how we measure quarterbacks is based on winning football games. His career will be based on that. Not did he take a shot at someone who was on TV saying something about it. I just do believe this. In this day and age, we got a lot of people that say whatever they want to about athletes. I don't have no problem with the athletes, that being Kyrie, Kevin Durant, Baker Mayfield. If they want to defend what they're doing, I think that they should. I think that there's too many guys that have sat around and taken abuse and everything, internalized all that. If you feel a certain way, if you want to call somebody's TV show, radio show, I believe that you should be able to do that. If people got enough guts to be able to open up their mouth to say something, then people should have enough guts to be able to defend it, and that's what they're doing.
And I just think this applies across past sports. Like this show, someone said to you, Jenna, hey, we love the goofy joke moments that make everyone laugh, but the ones that don't hit, cut those out. You couldn't. Because you get one with the other. Like at times, I get way too bogged down in the numbers. Like, right? Like there's no question about that. It's a weakness. But at times it's like, wow, I had never heard that. Like there are things that with anyone that brings something in theory elite to the table, there's going to be some baggage associated with it. And so I think that's the reality with Baker. And I think that people need to just take that for what it is.
And this jerk here says, oh, his numbers is elite level, and Jenna, your joke telling's elite level.
Right. Hey, Cris is. I didn't want to bring up things Cris don't do well, so I just leave it alone. He already knows.
You think some of my jokes are goofy?
Well, I just think they don't make any sense.
They don't make sense. My jokes don't make sense.
They're not funny. Is the problem.
They're goofy. They don't make sense, and they're not funny.
Yep. Yeah. But you're woke.
Man, I'm the worst. I am woke. On to the Packers now. There is no question what impact Aaron Rodgers will have on that offense, and yet it's the other side of the ball that has him excited. Aaron Rodgers says he likes the improvement he's seen on the defensive side of the ball, saying, quote, "It's good to have some new energy." CC, can a new look defense propel Rodgers and the Packers back to Super Bowl contention?
I believe not only the new look defensively, they just have not been good defensively for a long time. A lot of times I'm amazed because people don't look at things and look at the history of things. But when you go back and look at Aaron Rodgers, look at his playoff games, how he played, and how many points the defense gave up.
Oh, my God.
I mean, it's so ridiculous. I mean, how well he can play and they still lose the football game.
See, his first playoff game ever, he scored 45 points and they lost. His first game, the first taste of the playoffs against, I think it was Larry Fitzgerald, Kurt Warner, and the Cardinals.
Yep.
So drop 45 in your first playoff game ever. Go home with the loss. Go. I didn't mean to interrupt.
And for Green Bay for a long time, and even when we played Green Bay, there's a lack of physicality that the Green Bay Packers have had for a long time. Now, they went out when free agency, Reggie White, they went out and bought some physicality with Reggie White, and that brought them a championship. But if you look at the last 10 years, as far as defense, points scored, they have not been in the top 10. If you look at the lack of running game, so you're getting ready to try to win a football game where defensively I ain't going to be physical, and I'm not going to run the ball and be physical. That's what Aaron Rodgers has been dealing with. So the people want to criticize Aaron Rodgers. They don't like Aaron Rodgers, don't like his attitude. This is what he's been dealing with. They've got a different defensive coordinator the last couple of years, and now what they've decided is they're getting ready to get big and they're getting ready to get physical. Same thing New England did when at the end of the season, we're going to run the ball and we're going to defend and depend on our defense. So that's what they've gotten back to. They've changed their defensive scheme. They've changed their personnel and how the players look. Now, if they can just give Aaron some help on the offensive side, the physicality of running the ball, Green Bay can be that championship team that they were the last time they had a top 10 defense, 2010, last time they won a Super Bowl.
And this is why I can't just be a count the rings guy, even though with quarterbacks, how many Super Bowls you've been to, how many championships do you have the most impact on winning. I get it. Aaron Rodgers' first 4 years as a starter, one of those years he won the Super Bowl. The other 3 years in the playoffs, his team allowed 51, 37, and 45 in their losses. Okay, how about the last 3 playoff losses he's had? You had the game to go to the Super Bowl against the Seahawks, where there's the onside kick, then you can't get the stop in overtime, Russell Wilson game-winning touchdown pass. The next year, Aaron Rodgers completes not 1, 2 Hail Marys on the same drive to force overtime. Yeah. Can't get a stop. They lose in overtime. The next year, conference championship game again, 31-0. A minute into the second half against Atlanta. There's just no resistance from the defense whatsoever. There had to be a feeling of helplessness, which is why Rodgers talked about this week to Chris Sims, I think it was, talked about their additions, talked about the outside linebackers they added, talked about that defensive front. He mentioned second year under Mike Pettin. Like, he knows that division, that weather, all those things that, as great as he is, if the expectation is got to score 40 in January in Lambeau, we're going to be in trouble.
It's why he doesn't trust anyone. He's had to do everything by himself for the last couple of years, so he doesn't buy that anyone else is coming in or trust that anyone's going to help him. But just quickly explain why a good defense could help out a quarterback and could make life easier for Aaron Rodgers.
Well, for one, you're going to get more possessions. They're going to give you more turnovers. You can be on a short field. But what it takes out of the opposition when they know that there's a physical defense, when they know that, we're not going to be able to run up and down, then Aaron becomes more important. You turn the ball over two or three times,
right.
Give Aaron those extra possessions, but the physicality of football, you cannot take tackling and hitting out of football, and now they have the type of defense that can present that physicality.
All right, good stuff. Take a break. Coming up, a little basketball. Can James Harden live up to his championship promise? That is still ahead on First Things First. Here, First Things First, and we're joined by FS1 NBA analyst Cris Broussard. Hey, Cris.
What up, man?
Always good to be here.
I'm part of the First Things First management team. I apologize.
We have fun during the breaks.
Things that happen during the break stay during the break, CC.
Yeah.
No, What happens in Vegas don't stay there either. 9 months later, you see him walking around.
Hey, Broussard, Kyrie Irving has moved from Boston to Brooklyn, that we know. Last season, he had his best statistical season, but the Celtics were bounced in the second round. Kyrie was blamed for a lot of the team's issues: team chemistry, ball movement, relationship with the head coach. But Danny Ainge says, quote, "I feel like the Kyrie bashing is unfair." Cris, you agree with Danny Ainge there?
I do. I mean, look, Kyrie certainly deserves criticism. There's no doubt. I mean, he showed poor leadership. They didn't go as far with you as they had gone without you. So he deserves some criticism, but it's gone way too far. He's just was one of several reasons why it was a disappointing season. Number one, let's look at Brad Stevens. You know, I kind of call him at this point the little engine that could coach. You know, because he's one of those coaches. No, I mean, seriously. What I mean is that, and I'm with you in that he's great with X's and O's, and up to a year or so ago, I was saying this guy is phenomenal, and he still may be, but there are coaches in the NBA that maximize a little bit of talent, but when they get a lot of talent, they can't bring it to that highest level, right? Because they have trouble dealing with the superstars. The verdict, I would say, is still out on Stevens, but last year that was the case. He couldn't manage the ego of a superstar in Kyrie Irving. And then he mismanaged Gordon Hayward, a star. He had been a star, and we know there were reports that came out that the way he handled Hayward kind of rubbed some of the younger players the wrong way. So there's that issue. The second thing was the young players. And this is, look, it's good to get draft picks, but this can be also show you the negative of having too many. Right? Draft. We talk about, Oklahoma City's got 15 draft picks in the next 5 years. Well, that might not be the best thing because they brought in a lot of young players. And CC, you notice, young players, a lot of them are coming in thinking, I want to establish myself as a star first, get my max deal or close to it,
yes,
and then we'll start winning. So you had a Jaylen Brown, a Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, Terry Rozier. These guys that understandably, it's their job, it's a business, want to get paid. And sometimes averaging 10 points or 11 points when Kyrie's doing all the work isn't going to get you paid. And then, of course, last year they had some success, so they thought they were better than they were. The young players wanted to do a little more ISO, you know, breaking the offense a little more. So all of that conspired along with what Kyrie did.
Younger players, I think you make a great point, and I don't think fans look at it that way. Veteran players, because they've had experience, because they've been to 2 or 3 teams, they've been in several systems, that's when the veteran players are like, you know something? I'm better off being a role player. Danny Green, remember him when he was younger?
Right.
Non-athletic, not a good defensive player. I mean, he can shoot the basketball, but that's all he can do. As a young player, he's trying to get minutes. Right. He's trying to score. He's trying to take people off the dribble. I can do more than just shoot. So trying to prove people wrong, that's one of the things in trying to get paid as a young player. Kyrie understands that because Kyrie was that kid when he was in Cleveland. His numbers were phenomenal, but they got crushed. Yeah. But people knew that he could play. And there were times during the game when Kyrie was younger, he would just, like Marcus Haynes with the Globetrotters, he would just do things to you to let you, so people could see, man, I'm that good at basketball. One of the problems with the Celtics was there were so many different agendas. Kyrie wasn't a great leader, but Danny Ainge, Brad Stevens, they didn't do a good job as far as when guys' contracts were staged and getting a message to these younger players, even if you might not be getting 15 points a game. We look at you as the future, telling Jaylen Brown, telling Tatum those types of things, bringing those things under control. So then the leaders, it's easier for them to lead. So they need to be able to spread that blame around. Kyrie, of course, the marquee players, the big-time players, that's all a part of being a leader and getting that salary that he was getting.
I think everything you're saying is totally fair. I find these comments, though, really interesting for a slightly different reason because it would be easy, maybe be incorrect, but it would be easy, especially since Kyrie is gone, for the message for the Celtics leaked to reporters, said publicly to be, I mean, Kyrie was a bomb that went off in our locker room. He's crazy. He walks into practice, asks Brad Stevens, what does government mean to him? He's going down these YouTube rabbit holes. He's calling LeBron. He's talking about this. That message, at least then, even if it's not accurate, it wipes the hands clean of.
Now you say, now we're okay.
And now we're okay. Well, look, we got Kimbo, who's almost as good and doesn't have the drama. When Danny Ainge says the Kyrie bashing is unfair, totally fine comment. But that does put the spotlight on Brad Stevens for the reasons you said. And in my mind, it puts the spotlight on Danny. Because it is the general manager's job to see what Terry Rozier did in that conference finals run when Kyrie was injured. Know Terry Rozier's contract status. Know the personality of the player and say, are we better off, with his value pretty damn high, moving him rather than have him as an insurance policy that is going to be unhappy and a malcontent all year long? It is the general manager's job, when I heard, when you heard, when everyone heard, that Jason Tatum is spending a time with Kobe to have a hard conversation with him going into the year. Say, listen, man, appreciate you working on your game. Here's what you did really well. Here's what Kobe did really well. And looking up to Kobe is one thing. Thinking you can do what Kobe did, who is arguably the best bad shot maker ever. Like, what made Kobe special was he took impossible shots, but made them. And Danny Ainge either didn't do that, couldn't do that, or didn't get it across to him in that regard. That's on the organization. If it's not that Kyrie set a bomb off in the locker room, then there are more structural issues with the Celtics that could linger into this season, even though Rozier and Kyrie are both gone.
I think he had another motive, too. Danny Ainge knows you need superstars to win in this league.
Yes.
And he doesn't want to bash a superstar.
You cannot do
right?
that.
So he wants other guys to look at the team and say, okay, you know, not that they're anti-superstars and stuff.
It's a great
so
point.
That's a big part of this as well. And look, Kemba is unique in that he's a star kind of with a role player's character or something. So that's why I do think he'll fit well. But that's a message Danny Ainge is getting out.
Just quickly, whose team is it now? Who's the leader in that locker?
It's got to be Kimba.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Kimba.
It has to be Kimba. I mean, Jason Tatum maybe one day, but Kimba's got to be the guy. And Kimba, by the way, has experience with that. He was the leader in Charlotte. Now, they weren't good. I wouldn't blame him for that. Michael's done a terrible job.
He's a great leader in college,
team.
too.
Absolutely.
Great leader in college.
And a winner and a guy, we haven't seen him play big NBA games, but if you can carry it over from college, he is a big game, big shot maker, big shot taker. So it becomes Kimba's team.
All right, take a break. Coming up, Broussard, we'll see you a little later. Can Carson Wentz regain his 2017 form? That's next on First Things First. Back to your First Things First. We are now joined by Pro Bowler Bart Scott.
Welcome back,
Wait a
man.
minute.
It's been a while.
It is nice to see.
Invitation is the greatest form of flattery, man.
Oh, you think I'm trying to be like you?
Listen, I understand what this means. See, he doesn't. This is a cry for help.
Crying for help?
Yeah, this was a midlife crisis for me, man. I didn't have enough money to buy a motorcycle, so I grew my hair out. Look, John B. with the Shannon Sharp part on the side. I like that.
You like it?
I'm feeling it.
He's
You
feeling
gotta
it,
wet it up,
too.
though. You got to juice it up, though, baby.
I need more of your juices and berries.
Soul Glow.
Okay. Oh, Soul Glow. Appreciate
Soul
that.
Glow.
Good to have you back.
Leave my
Bart.
guys
Wait a
hair
minute.
alone, man.
Oh,
It's beautiful, man.
Yeah,
Like,
oh.
when it get
Let me see them ankles, man. You got some
We're not
lotion on
done.
them? It's the summer.
no,
You
it's
can't have
ashy.
ashy ones, man.
No, see, what happens is black people can't put on lotion because what happens is
Jenna, read.
you start sweating, bro.
Jenna, go.
Don't put lotion on in the summer.
The Eagles.
Knuckles ashy.
Bart
Ankles
Scott,
ashy.
The
Give me the-
Eagles
give me the
show
10 o'clock.
Carson Wentz some love this offseason with a 4-year
Let that humidity
extension
hit
with
it.
$107 million guaranteed. His head coach, Doug Peterson, said he sees this season as a great opportunity for Wentz, and he was highly complimentary of his quarterback. Remember, Wentz coming off back-to-back seasons cut short by injury. Bart, how hard will it be for Wentz to return to his 2017 Pro Bowl form?
Well, they have to go back to a formula, and he has to understand now that he's got the money, he's the franchise. You know, he's the most important player on the team because he touches the ball every play. So he's going to have to make sure that he can be available. The best ability is availability. And really, with Nick Foles going down to Jacksonville, it's some fans that would think that he was better for the team in the big games. So he has to go and he has to.
Foles was.
That Foles was
Gotcha.
because we always talk about playoff Rondo. We knew when Foles got in the playoffs, no matter what happened during the season, he was magical.
Yes.
And I think they recognized that the key is keeping Wentz healthy because of their draft pick, right? They went out and understand that Jason Peters, although great, Hall of Famer, no doubt, has struggled to stay healthy, and he's starting to break down. So what did they do with their first draft pick? They went and got Andre Dillard, who was a tremendous pass protector. And if Jason Peters stays healthy, they can easily slide him in the guard, and they understand that they're going to have to run the ball. I think last year losing Jay Ajayi really put too much pressure on their quarterback position, so they go out and they get Miles Sanders, who's a tremendous running back that they can run, and then they finally went out and got somebody that can stretch the football field, reuniting Philadelphia with Deshaun Jackson, who can stretch the field, which is taking some of the pressure out of Ertz and also Aguilar to kind of carry the load, which means that they're going to have a lot of weapons. It's a lot of pressure on them. I don't understand how they continue to make these deals. They may have the greatest GM out there. The fact that they're able to go get Malik Jackson and add to that after losing Haloti Nada,
they paid Jordan Howard. They brought him in addition to drafting the running back you mentioned. Howard Roseman does a great job at cap machinations, and he does a great job of drafting not just for this year, but for the future. When you mentioned they move up in the draft to get Andre Dillard, that I think their best case scenario is he doesn't start a single game at tackle this year, that Peters is healthy, that Peters is great, but they know they've got the right tackle of the now and the future in Lane Johnson. They go out and target a left tackle. But I think your point on the offensive weapons is important because I don't think this Philly defense is going to be as dominant as it was in 2017 and at portions of 2018. And for Carson, it is going to be a lot about developing a rapport with D-Jack because you've harped on it, Chris. He is such a unique, deadly weapon in this league still at his advanced age. You cannot single cover him if he's going deep. If you are, you're going to have to play 15 yards off him and then cut that into a slant and just get 8 yards every time. So what will that rapport be? Because it also allows Jeffrey and Aguilar to drop down a peg in the receiving rotation, which is probably more their speed.
You're starting to rub off on him, Chris. He's starting to make sense.
I think both of you guys make great points. In the NFL now, when you talk to offensive line coaches, offensive coordinators, there's a theory that the way to make the offensive line better, with there's so much emphasis on passing, is try to have 3 tackles inside your starting lineup. So one of your guards, if you can make him a tackle, and you're talking about with Andre Dillard, the kid from Washington State, if he's able, if Peters can stay healthy, and you can move him to guard, you got a tackle, big guy, playing guard, so it's going to help out your pass protection, which you talked about, Nick, his expertise. Deshaun Jackson is one of the keys to what they're trying to do. I believe in institutional talent. They have that with Howie Roseman. They're putting all the pieces around Carson. I believe Carson's going to win a Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles. But Deshaun Jackson is going to open up that offense because he can stretch it. It makes Jeffrey a better possession receiver. It makes Aguilar a better slot receiver. It makes Ertz. Ertz can still do his thing there at the tight end. Their ability to be able to run the ball, it should be there better than it has been the last couple years. So they have all the pieces. I believe their defense, especially starting the season, will be a little more consistent like they were at the end of the season.
And it dictates coverage, right? Because when you have Deshaun Jackson, you know that he's going to get the double coverage. So now you got one-on-one for Alshon Jeffrey, who's a guy who can, run you off, but still he has that huge catch radius. But then now the huge matchup and the person that's going to benefit the most is Ertz, because now he's going to get a safety or a linebacker without any help, and he's
always been Wentz's favorite target.
Yeah,
sometimes to the detriment of others, he's targeted Wentz a disproportionate.
You only need Deshaun Jackson to catch maybe 60 balls, but we know what his capabilities are. He leads the league or NFL probably in history in touchdowns over 60 yards or greater. So when you have that threat, you're going to have the field wide open.
And we're not all just sitting here blowing steam for the Eagles offense. Doug Peterson actually said this is the best set of skill players he's had on offense since he's been a head coach in Philadelphia.
To me, there's no doubt. I think Jordan Howard's the best running back they've ever had, and Deshaun Jackson is the most dangerous. I don't know if he's the best. He's the most dangerous wide receiver they've had. And I know offensive line talk's not always the most sexy or most interesting on television, but the reason it's so critically important to this team, it's important to every team, but what is the one real concern with Carson Wentz?
Health.
Health.
Right.
And so, and by the way, he was sacked 5% of the time his rookie year, 6% of the time his second year, 7% of the time last year. So that's been ticking in the wrong direction. And so you want to get that back the other way, because if he's healthy, we know how talented
What's
he
about
is.
his off-schedule plays? You know, he gets hurt
Yes.
being reckless on the football field. He has to understand how important he is. He can't be scrambling and trying to extend plays. It's better for him just to learn to throw the ball away and live to fight another day.
Because Nate Sudfeld is not Nick Foles at all.
You don't want Nate Sudfeld walking through that door.
No. Bart, stick around. Coming up, how much trouble are the Cowboys in if Zeke does indeed hold out? That's next on First Things First. In just one day, one of the greatest fighters of our generation puts his legacy on the line as Manny Pacquiao battles undefeated world champ Keith Thurman. It's the can't-miss fight of the summer. It's tomorrow, 9 Eastern, live on pay-per-view or order on the Fox Sports app.
Thurman in a decision pays about plus 165, just putting it out there.
You're always saying what I was just about to say. We'll get to Ezekiel Elliott with Bart Scott in just a second, but first, Brewers and D-backs and Lorenzo Cain elevates at the center field wall.
I tell you, he's one of the best center fielders in baseball, man. He's exciting. He's a human highlight reel.
Couple World Series appearances, one championship. One of my favorite players, maybe my
That's when
favorite
the
player
Royals used
in the
to be
league.
good.
Yeah, briefly.
Portland Timbers versus
Watch this.
Orlando FC. Check out the teamwork here. Nice sweet kiss off the
Make the
post
dream work.
for a Timbers goal.
I mean, that is beautiful.
Great header. Not the goal, the pass.
Yeah. I mean, the steal is great. The cross is outstanding. That's extraordinary, and then boom.
The cross, that's the way I want your head, Nick. I want you to be that color. See that right there?
Oh, the hair. No,
yeah, European soccer player
nah,
style.
man, I ain't doing no blonde dyed.
Elevation
Miami
right here.
Pro
Come on,
League
you
here,
be-
Bart.
get on the
Heats
real
Derek
brand.
Jones Jr. catches the reverse alley-oop, puts it down.
That's elevation. He probably can't shoot that. If he could dunk that good, he probably can't
Man,
shoot.
that looks like Bart in high school. Not the guy dunking, the guy watching the guy fly by him and dunk.
Oh, come on, man. We all know you the dude that showed up to, you show up to the park with 25 wristbands on like you can ball.
I did wear headbands. I did wear
Headband, knee
headbands.
brace.
Yeah, no knee brace, but headbands, wristbands.
Stocks and Dallas
Gotta be fly,
Cowboys.
bro.
I got next. Get out of here, scrub.
Since entering the NFL in 2016, Ezekiel Elliott has 4,000 rushing yards. That's 600 more yards than Todd Gurley, who's second in rushing yards in that span. Well, now Zeke wants to get paid like Gurley was and is contemplating holding out if he doesn't. Bart, how much easier will it be to defend the Cowboys if there is no Zeke to contend with?
So much easier because he's not going to drop the eighth man in the box because who do you respect? I don't even know who their backup running back is. Ezekiel Elliott's been the best running back since he's been in the league. And that's talking about the year where he missed games. You know, he's also a dual threat. He's a guy that's tremendous in pass protection as well. And we've seen what the offense looks when it goes through Dak.
Right.
It's not so well. We talking about, you know, Zeke should have been the rookie of the year. They gave it to Dak just because it always goes to the position if things are close. But he sets the table for everybody. He sets that play action Amari Cooper down the field. Do you expect to get much from Jason Witten? You're going to get 5 yards and a hook. You know what I mean? So if you want to continue to get the big plays, the explosive plays down the field, you have to have Ezekiel Elliott because all you're going to do is roll coverage and double Amari Cooper. You can drop anybody on Jason Witten. He ain't running past nobody. And, Dak Prescott is going to try and do too much. He's trying to get his contract. Ezekiel Elliott, to me, is the most important player on that offense, period.
Let's go around the NFL, and let's just say we had an open draft of all the Dallas Cowboys players.
Yep.
Anyone, you can have them. Any compensation, just open bidding.
Yep.
Who would fetch the biggest price? And that's the best player, and that would be Ezekiel Elliott. There wouldn't be people trading a couple first-round picks for Dak Prescott. I don't believe that. Amari Cooper would get a first-round pick. It wouldn't be multiple picks.
Marcus Lawrence probably get a first-round pick.
Yes, absolutely. They got some talented players. Some of the offensive linemen, Travis Frederick, if he was built to get a clean bill of health, he's definitely worth a first-rounder. But the only one worth multiple, that is Zeke. I can go to the numbers. I can go to what I see. I can go to when I watch the Cowboys, how this franchise changed when they drafted Ezekiel Elliott. Now, I thought Zeke was going to be special. He was one of the special running backs we ever had at Ohio State.
Oh, okay.
And he plays every down, like you said. If you don't give him the ball on second down, he will be blocking, pass protection on third down. He can either come out of the backfield. He's great at blitz pickup. Last season, when the Dallas Cowboys, when they win time of possession, Let's just forget the names. When they win time of possession, they were 8-0. The reason why they win time of possession wasn't that offensive line. It's because Ezekiel Elliott. He's their most valuable player. I tell you guys all the time, Dennis Green taught me that they have a ranking system on the team, that they evaluate everything, and ultimately the 53-man roster is evaluating. He ranks the players 1 to 53. Ezekiel Elliott is clearly ranked number 1 Dallas Cowboy by me and by the experts that watch the game and respect the game.
And how much easier are the Falcons to defend if Julio's not out there? Would the Chiefs be without Tyreek Hill, which we might see this year? We saw it kind of for the Rams without Todd Gurley. I mean, he was there in the Super Bowl, but not really, and they scored 3 points. That when we are talking about the most important, most impactful non-quarterbacks in football on the offensive side of the ball, if Zeke's not one, he's in that top 5. And so you saw the Giants when Odell went out. What happened to them? Like, when you are this type of talent, it's not always the best player is the most important guy. Sometimes that's the case, but sometimes it matches up. And with Dak, we've seen Dak struggle when perfect situations. Great offensive line, great running game, 8 in the box, and Dak still at times struggled. If all of a sudden I think Rod Smith is their backup. Like, if all of a sudden it's just a guy back there, then Dak is not facing.
Well, the defense is going to get more complex because they don't have to show what they're doing, so they can zone blitz because they don't have any respect for Dak and being able to break down the defense. But I'll play devil's advocate for just a second. The reason why, you look at where Zeke is they've rolled a lot of the tread off the tires. So if I'm thinking about giving him an extension, he's in year 4, going into year 5, and then if you give him an extension, you're talking about paying him essentially till year 9. And I think a lot of general managers are going to be scared off from what the Todd Gurley contract has really done out there in L.A., handcuffed the organization, because eventually that, these running backs are going to wear down. And Ezekiel's taking a lot of hits. He's taking a lot of carries. So maybe they think, okay, well, let's just see if we can get him for 5 years and see if we can find a replacement for him next year, just in case he wants the $15 million a year price tag.
Do you think he holds out? Do you think the Cowboys will let it get to that?
I think he has to hold out. I think that's the only play he has. He'll never have more leverage this year, as this team knows next year they're going to have to address a lot of contracts. They got to address the cornerback position who's going to get paid. They got to address Dak. So he understands that if he's going to get the oil, or the squeaky wheel gets the oil, it's going to have to be this year, because going forward, it may not have an opportunity to really have the type of leverage that he has this year, because they have Super Bowl aspirations.
Bart, you played this game a long time. You've seen a lot of players who develop and were able to be competent NFL players. Ezekiel Elliott, since I met him when he was 18, there's certain guys Bart, they just different. They born to play this game. They got the body for it. They got the psyche for it. They lift the weights. They love the contact. That's who Ezekiel Elliott is. Big old head, running back, natural running skills, big, thick body, can catch out of the backfield, does not get hurt. You don't see a lot of people get square shots on him. To me, Zeke's one of them running backs that can play a long time. He takes care of his body, and there's just certain people just meant to do certain things.
And I understand your point as far as you do an extension. The extension probably would run through his 9th season, but you'd be guaranteeing he's on the team through his 7th season. And so I get the argument against it. The argument against it is, well, we can guarantee that by just letting the contract run out, 5th-year option, franchise tag, franchise tag. But that removes the human element. That removes the disgruntled player. That removes the possibility of a holdout. And listen, this Cowboys team is talented. It's not as talented as a 93 team. 93 team could suffer a holdout without Emmett, go 0-2, and then go 15-2 the rest of the year. This Cowboys team can't have the hiccup. We saw a Seahawks team thought they had Super Bowl aspirations the year coming off the Super Bowl loss. Cam Chancellor, great player, not Zeke. He held out a couple weeks. They start slow. That cost them a home playoff game and a chance to get back to the Super Bowl. If Zeke's serious about a holdout, they almost have no choice but to pay.
They did lose the first 3 games that he sat out. He was suspended.
And they scored 22 total points in those first
they got to keep pace with the Philadelphia Eagles, too. That's going to put some pressure on the organization as well.
All right. Take a break. Coming up, Danny Ainge comes to Kyrie's defense. Yes, you heard that right. That's next on First Things First.
How's Danny Ainge keep getting in this damn show, man?
Give me a low
give
shot
you
here,
2
Bart.
words.
Let me see that. Oh,
Get that, baby.
Oh, yeah, it's almost 8 o'clock.
Let me show you that.
Yeah,
Now listen, I'm
There we go.
going to Instagram a picture at 11 and show you how that black skin work, baby. Self-lubricated.
Back here, First Things First, and we are going viral. Browns defensive end Myles Garrett recently worked out at an MMA gym. On Instagram, Garrett said he loves, quote, finding new ways to exceed my limits physically and mentally. See, you ever try something like this?
I have, man. I've almost tried everything. And what I like about doing stuff like this is when you get in tough spots in the game, you can go to that spot mentally where you were when you're doing all this training, and then you look at your opposition and be like, he didn't do this. He didn't do this type of training. He didn't pay the price. I know I got more in it than him, so I love it. He's going to be one of my favorites. You're going to see plenty of videos of him on this show. 20 sacks, Myles, this year.
And, man, got the talent for it. Was a phenom at A&M. One of the best recruits they had gotten in a generation there. And now it's going to be harder to double-team him. When you have Sheldon Richardson, when you've got Olivier Vernon, when you got Larry Ogunjobi, and the cardio stuff that the boxing and MMA training does for you, and those 3-minute rounds of boxing, 5-minute rounds of MMA, and those feel like hours. So this is great. This is awesome.
All right, time for stories to start your morning.
Do you box, Jenna?
Yesterday.
I think Jenna would be good at it.
No, I don't want to build too much of my upper body.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yesterday, Tiger Woods, that's honesty right there for you. Tiger Woods struggled in round
nice
one of the Open Championship in Northern Ireland. He finished 7 over his worst opening round in 21 starts at the Open. Today, Tiger is 2 under through 10 holes. See, can Tiger get back into this?
Well, a lot better weather today. You would think that the cut line's probably going to be around +2. Right now, he's a few shots off of that. Tiger Woods, you'll see him struggle now. We should just get used to this. If the weather, if it's raining, if it's cold, because we can't forget, he's the only golfer ever on tour to have a fuse back. And typically, underneath the fusion and above the fusion, those discs, you still have problems with them. And that's what we saw yesterday. His body was not comfortable on the golf course.
Yeah, and he winced on his very first shot of the day. He was able to hold on to the rope through the first 5 holes, grinding out pars, and then it all went askew for him. He had a hole that people were driving the green, the 6th hole. He ends up bogeying that, follows that up with a double, and it just got away from him yesterday. He's going to have to grind really hard today to find a way to even make it to the weekend.
All right, yesterday, Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh had some strong words for former Ohio State coach Urban Meyer, saying, quote, Urban Meyer's had a winning record, really phenomenal record everywhere he's been, but also controversy follows everywhere he's been. What did you make of this, CC?
Well, it's not true. He's been to 4 places. He originally started coaching at Bowling Green, had no problems there, then went to Utah, did nothing but win in both places, went to Florida, big university, 45,000 students, competitive there in the SEC, turned that program around to their most successful tenure that they've ever had under a coach. Did they have some things off the field? Yes. And he went to Ohio State. Every coach that's coached at Ohio State the last 40 years has had things. The greatest coach we had, Woody Hayes, fired. Why? Because he punched someone. Big programs come with big issues and big problems. Well, let me tell you what the problem is in Michigan. They not winning, all right? My man Urban Meyer has won wherever he's been. Bowling Green, he won. Utah won. Florida won national championships. And at the Ohio State won 4 times he faced Harbaugh, beat him 4 times too. So, yes, there was some controversy in the last 2 spots, but he didn't leave Ohio State because of controversy. It was health-related, and that's also the reason why he left the University of Florida.
Listen, Harbaugh, you're my guy. Zip it on this. Take the gift that is Urban Meyer's retirement and try to go take control of the Big Ten.
There ain't no gift. Ryan, they ain't no gift.
Okay, well, listen, it's not Urban who has as good of a coaching resume as almost anyone in the history of the sport.
Tell me the last time when Ohio State lost, man. Tell me the last time they had a bad coach.
Okay.
Tell me.
It's been a long time.
Oh, okay.
Who was the guy after Tressel?
Isn't that a song?
Great.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time since Michigan beat us.
Okay, I know.
Yesterday.
See, Harbaugh, that's why you should have zipped it.
Yesterday, Kevin Durant was on the gram posting pictures of his rehab from his torn Achilles. Check him out shooting some hoops in the pool. See, what's going to be the hardest thing for KD in this recovery process?
Just being patient. He's played at such a high level for a long time, but being patient, realizing that this is one of the most tedious injuries, the most tedious processes that he would ever go through. But I've been trying to tell the audience that cutting-edge medicine, technology, the recovery is a lot faster than ever before. The exercises they have the athletes doing, getting them up and moving. You don't have the atrophy. You don't have the cast. You don't have it immobilized for a long period of time. So he's in a walking boot. He's out getting movement. He's out doing things in the pool, non-weight bearing things. Also, still working on that jump shot. I'm excited to see Kevin Durant, because I believe that there's greatness right on the other side of this, and Kevin Durant is going to reach out and grab it.
Chris really believes he's going to be back this year. It would be an unbelievable infusion in what should be the most wide-open NBA season we've had in 15 years if around the All-Star break, all of a sudden the Nets add Kevin Durant, which your timeline says, and I was in your office, listening to you talk to that doctor, said, hey, man, Vince Wilfork came back in 6 months.
Yes.
KD can come back in 8.
At 350.
Right, and now Vince Wilfork's not jumping, but still 6 months for him. So we'll see. I'm rooting for KD in this regard. All injuries stink. The way he got injured is about as bad as it gets, given everything that went into it. So I'm hoping he's back as soon as possible.
All right, Kyrie Irving has moved from Boston to Brooklyn. Last season, he had his best statistical season, but the Celtics were bounced in the second round. Kyrie was blamed for a lot of the team's issues: team chemistry, team leadership, ball movement, the relationship with Brad Stevens. But Danny Ainge says, quote, I feel like the Kyrie bashing is unfair. Nick, do you agree with Danny Ainge?
To a degree, I agree with him, but I find this really interesting because a lot of the people around Boston, I've heard Chris Mannix talk about this, I've heard Bill Simmons talk about this, people that are in the media but have their biggest connection to the Celtics, what they're saying is the worst Kyrie stories haven't even come out yet. Like, people seem to be waiting on the long form, be it Jackie McMullen or someone else, to write the autopsy of what happened there. And Danny Ainge is pushing back. Danny Ainge was saying we had issues that weren't just Kyrie, and Kyrie's gone now. So you could just say, man, he was a bomb that went off in our locker room, leak those things, talk about those things.
Now we're fine.
Right, and that makes not only his hands clean, but his coach's hands clean. When he says Kyrie wasn't the only issue, well, that then puts more of a finer point on the failings last year of Brad Stevens, the failings of Danny Ainge as far as recognizing that Terry Rozier was going to be very unhappy in his role, recognizing the potential issues in that locker room. So I'll take Danny's word on this, but that does mean Boston has some other work to do organizationally to make sure something like this doesn't happen again, even though now Kyrie's gone.
Well, first things first, Danny Ainge cannot have a press conference and say that Kyrie Irving was the problem. For one, Kyrie and his agent and all those associated with that agency, they would steer clear of Danny Ainge and Boston throughout their career. If he wants to commit professional suicide, that's what a general manager does. That's why general manager, you will not hear Sam Presti for OKC say anything negative about Russ. Never said anything about KD, never said anything about Harden. This is a small window of people that are in this profession, really a small pool of people. So, no, he's not going to do it. And Danny Ainge, to me, is not a guy just going to blatantly just lie. Because after looking back on it, they've studied the roster, they studied the whole situation, and they realize himself that I didn't do what was best. I didn't scout our team. Because I know last year when Terry Rozier was starting, they told him, you are good enough to be a starter in this league. Well, you know Kyrie's not coming back. Is Terry Rozier still on that team?
No.
Oh, okay, so they lied to him because Kyrie was leaving. They could have kept him and made him the starting point guard.
They could have kept him. Instead, Charlotte gave him $19 million a year.
Gordon Hayward. There's no way that they told him the truth. They pumped all those minutes into Gordon Hayward. He shouldn't have been out there on the team. And Brad Stevens ultimately is the coach who I believe is in control. He did not do the best job with the most talented basketball team that he has ever coached. So for me, you need to be able to spread this around. I don't care what stories come out about Kyrie? Because typically when someone leaves, ultimately there are stuff that comes out. Every locker room, there's stuff. Kawhi talked about him and Kyle Lowry. Hey, man, remember we had some stuff happen that didn't come out. We had my man from Golden State. David West said here, man, there was stuff in Golden State that we squashed. We didn't let it get out to the public. So, yeah, there's stories out there, but there are people that are responsible, and they should share in that blame.
Nick, you said there's other work that has to be done. It wasn't just Kyrie. What other work has to be done? Who has to step up this year? Who really needs to take the reins and step up besides, obviously, Kemba?
Well, listen, the work that needs to be done might be work that isn't going to be done this year. As far as who needs to step up this season, yes, Kemba. Jason Tatum going to need to try on defense. Kind of took a year off defensively last year and spent that year instead taking terrible long twos, like contested twos. Jaylen Brown needs to recognize his route to becoming the player that he can be is not the route of being a 22-point-per-game guy. It's the route of being a great defensive player who can hit corner threes and be a decent fourth option on a team. But holistically, big picture, it is about the coach to a degree. Our friend Chris Mannix, mentioned him again. I remember he sat here on the show and said, is there any player in the league you would trade Brad Stevens for? That was the talk of Stevens after Isaiah Thomas led team goes to the conference finals, and then a bunch of kids go to the conference finals with Hayward injured, with Kyrie injured. Different types of coaches in this league. One guy who I think does not get enough respect, Chris, Eric Spoelstra. Spoelstra's shown us, give me a super team. I will get the most out of them. Give me a bunch of guys, and I will have them grinding alive for the playoffs late. We know Stevens can do the latter. Can he do the former? Because if you can't, then you have a very limited ceiling in this league. Because you can't win without the superstars. Your whole goal is to get the superstars.
Yeah, I think Brad's a good coach.
Yes.
I'm not going to say that he's one of the better coaches in the league because I still need to see more, especially the way these teams differed in the last couple of years. But what I need to see a buy-in from the players. These younger players, outside of Kemba, these younger players 2 years ago, there was a buy-in. I saw that in the playoffs. I saw them sacrificing. So for me, Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens got to be able to sell to this team. I'm going to come up with what's best for you, and I want you to perform that role because I believe that's when Brad is at his best. When he gives a kid a role, the guy thrives in that role, then you build off of that. And Gordon Hayward has to be more athletic in year number 3, all right, there in Boston than he was last year.
And just real quick, for those young players, we shouldn't discount the fact they were parts of trade rumors as well. We gave the Lakers young players a bit of a pass. Like, oh, man, the Anthony Davis stuff killed them. They'd been hearing they could be traded for Anthony Davis for 2 years. Now, Kyrie's gone. You know who their team is. They should know they're going to be there moving forward. Maybe that'll give them a little peace moving into next year.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, does Aaron Rodgers finally have the defense to contend for another Super Bowl? Talk about that next on First Things First. Here with Bart Scott. We're talking Aaron Rodgers, Bart. There's no question what impact he'll have on that offense, and yet it's the other side of the ball that has Rodgers excited. Says he likes the improvement he's seen on the defensive side of the ball, saying, quote, it's good to have some new energy. So, Bart, can a new-look defense propel Rodgers and the Packers back to Super Bowl contention?
No, absolutely. I remember when I was a member of the Jets and the Baltimore Ravens, one of the biggest mistakes we made is trying to make a good defense better. And what you do is you think about Aaron Rodgers, you think about his success and how much of the load he's had to carry. To improve the offense, you improve the defense because now you're going to give him short fields, you're going to give him turnovers, he's going to be set up. And now they realize that less is more of Aaron Rodgers. They don't need Aaron Rodgers to be special the entire game. They just need him to be special in the right moments. That's why you saw last year when Aaron Jones was starting to run the ball, the offense moved better. What did they do in the offseason? They went out and they got Mercedes Lewis, who's basically like another tackle. But he's a more than capable matchup nightmare when you need those red zone, goal line type of touchdowns because he's the guy that's going to sneak out because he's going to get the least amount of attention. So you look at what they did. They bring in Zadarius Smith. They bring in Preston Smith. Last year, Zaire Alexander. they've given Mike Pettin the tools that he needs to be a dominant defense, a top 5 defense, because they're going to have to win some ugly matchups. You think about the weather in Chicago. You think about the weather in Green Bay late in seasons. It's not about airing the ball out 40 times. It's about being able to ground and pound, being able to have, stifling defense, tremendous special teams, and shortening, the field and the distance that Aaron Rodgers has to go.
Yeah, Pettin has that type of mentality that he's trying to change this football team from a finesse football team to a big physical football team. We have in Minnesota, because we've scouted Green Bay, that's our opponent. We know how Green Bay, and they have been a finesse team for a long time. When free agency hit a number of years ago, Reggie White became available, they knew that. They knew the only way to be able to win a Super Bowl was bring some physicality, even though Reggie brought some other things as far as some credibility, get more African Americans to go to Green Bay and play there long term. But right now they're trying to help Aaron Rodgers with the physicality of that defense. Mike Pettin is bringing a 34 and a 30. The last couple years they've drafted players in free agency that fit into that big physical scheme. And they're trying to get a model a lot like New England won the Super Bowl last year. If you look at New England, what they were the last quarter of the season and in the playoffs, big, physical. We're getting ready to run the football. We're getting ready to do what people don't like, that people don't fail, make you tackle and win the game up front in the trenches. That's the way New England won the last Super Bowl, and they're trying to get that for Aaron Rodgers, give him some help with those possessions, give him a short field, but ultimately make the game tight. In the fourth quarter, what did New England do? Brady to Gronk. Be Gronk, but only be special a few times during the game, as you mentioned, to try to get Aaron Rodgers that second Super Bowl, Nick.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.